Throwback weekend is finally here, as Labor Day weekend at the Darlington Raceway has provided some great races and once again will provide some awesome paint schemes reflecting on the 7 decades of NASCAR. Before I start ranking all of the throwbacks, we have some dishonorable mentions from the teams that decided to miss out. Daniel Suarez, even though technically he's running a Carl Edwards throwback, Martin Truex Jr., even though he's throwing it back to his Auto Club win, and Alex Bowman are some of the notable drivers that are running regular paint schemes this weekend at Darlington. With that out of the way, let's take a look at the unique and colorful paint schemes that are going back in time this Sunday. First up is Landon Castle's Bobby Allison throwback. An idea already used multiple times, I can at least respect it as a solid start for a smaller team with little to no history. Hopefully bigger things are to come for Starcom over the years. Next up is Jamie Mcmurray's Mcdonald's throwback, as he will be running an old Bill Elliott 50 years special edition paint scheme, and this time it will commemorate 50 years of the Big Mac sandwich. Besides 2015 when they missed out, the one team has brought some fantastic throwbacks as of late. This car holds up well to the Mac tonight and the Donnie Allison Hawaiian throwback well, and it will look great under the lights.
Woo! Beautiful. Wow. Look at that.
Whoa.
What do you think, Brad?
I like the black. Oh, and the gold numbers. Yes, I remember this car.
Brad Keselowski will once again salute the Hall of Famer Rusty Wallace with his beautiful Miller Genuine Draft paint scheme from the 1990 season. I like the continued legacy of Miller Lite and NASCAR getting showcased on this 2 car, and hopefully they keep churning great ideas. Hopefully next up we get the mid-1990s Rusty Wallace paint scheme, or maybe some early 2000s Rusty Wallace cars, or maybe some Kurt Busch, or eventually even a Brad Keselowski throwback. The possibilities are endless, and another great throwback for Brad Keselowski. This is a really late addition, but Austin Dillon will be throwing it back to Dale Earnhardt's Silver Bullet paint scheme that ran at the 1995 All-Star race. This car is absolutely fantastic. I love seeing the throwbacks now to Dale Earnhardt. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, this is horrible. He can't throw back to Dale Earnhardt. He's rolling in his grave. Even though Dale Earnhardt is probably happy and he's probably taking pride in seeing the legacy getting carried on. As Austin Dillon, he's made the playoffs 3 years in a row. He's won a Daytona 500. I mean, the legacy is there. And I don't think there's anything to be mad about like everyone's trying to make a big deal. Great throwback. It's probably one of the best. And once again, RCR, fantastic throwback. Another year, another Busch paint scheme for Kevin Harvick. Basically, it's another can design throwback that we've seen countless times by Anheuser-Busch. Hopefully we see a brand new design for 2019 because Busch, they're beating their old promotional horse to death, continuing with these ideas about Busch cans and stuff. They all look fairly similar. I'd like to see a new idea next year. Maybe a 2000s throwback, or maybe since Busch, they sponsored the Busch Series, maybe you can throw back to some Busch Series championship cars. I mean, anything would be better than doing the same repetitive idea. I mean, it looks good. It's just, please, something different next year. While it's not a throwback, Matt Kenseth and the 6 team have a rather interesting look for Darlington. Oscar Mayer is coming back to NASCAR and introduced a brand new look for the Roush Fenway Ford Fusion. While they could have thrown back to this beautiful old paint job driven by Mark Martin in 2004, this scheme looks respectable enough. As long as Rutledge Wood doesn't make a wieners up joke interviewing Matt Kenseth, I'm totally fine with Oscar Mayer coming back.
And just because you haul ahead to Darlington, maybe you can catch up. Well, make sure you fasten your meat belt.
Chase Elliott will be sporting another Elliott family throwback, this time to his late cousin Casey Elliott. While I like the meaning behind this car, it just doesn't look eye-catching, especially replacing the red with the Napa blue. It just doesn't fit with this car. It just feels off, and I think that's the one thing that's dragging down this paint scheme compared to last year's throwback and even the 2016 throwback I liked. Next season, hopefully we see a bright red Bill Elliott throwback like we've wanted to see for the last couple years, even though Napa will probably just ruin that design. Mountain Dew, please sponsor Darlington next year. Eric Almirola will be piloting this Smithfield Helping Hungry Homes throwback based loosely on a Valvoline concept that was rejected. They had so many options to run on this 10 car, and they chose a lazy cop-out instead. I mean, really, Smithfield? Really? But believe it or not, it's still the second best 10-car throwback we've gotten. Don't even get me started on the Ugly Nature's Bakery throwback we got from 2 years ago. One of the worst designs I've ever seen on a cup car. It's the first Fedex throwback for Denny Hamlin. As we all know, the last couple years he's ran some Sport Clips looks, and they've been fairly nice. And this time the defending Southern 500 champion is going to be driving this beautiful throwback to his first of 10,000 career races. This tribute to Denny Hamlin's Chesterfield, Virginia throwback days, it looks absolutely sharp. And unlike Chase Elliott's throwback, the Fedex purple instead of the black, it turns out really well on this car. It's definitely a step up for the 11 team, and it's probably in the top 5 or 10 in terms of the best throwbacks this year. YRB, Ryan Blaney, will be throwing it back to his father, Dave Blaney, with this beautiful design. The old Jasper 77 is back, and this time the colors are replicated on Blaney's 12 Menards Ford Fusion. Hopefully in the future we can see more of Dave Blaney's paint jobs on his son's car, and I think this can strengthen the connection between them and ultimately gain more fans towards Ryan Blaney. Maybe next year we can see the 2012 Ollie's Bargain Outlet paint scheme that led the 2012 Daytona 500. It would be a great design to see on track. After beating the Smokey Unique idea to death, Ty Dillon and Germain Racing will sport a throwback to the first Cup car that the team ran back in 2009. Talk about a throwback. This one is certainly a hidden gem. I remember watching the blue and red Geico scheme driven by Max Pappas with just the hopes of qualifying for the race. This car is a symbol of that progress within the organization and how they have become a stable team in NASCAR in 2018. A very underrated throwback. Clint Boyer, still without a defined sponsor, made the most of the Ugly Duckling label with this awesome tribute to Ned Jarrett and his 1965 Southern 500 win. The beautiful blue and the awesome font on this car makes it stand out as a genuine throwback. In addition, I like the idea they have the owner Tony Stewart on the hood. Great nod, and it makes it even more creative and eye-catching to the fans. This is certainly a timeless throwback we can all get behind, reflect back on the old days. Nothing runs like a Deere, and that's certainly the case for Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s John Deere throwback. Yes, I know it's Deere, but this is a wonderful pop culture reference to the NASCAR YouTuber community. If you know what it is, put it in the comments below. But anyways, this green and yellow paint scheme, it harkens me back to my childhood. As you guys probably don't know, I have been part of a farming family, and as a result, I have tons of Chad Little merchandise, such as die-casts, haulers, and even a collectible display that I'll have to showcase in a collection video. I would certainly buy the die-cast, but of course the licensing ruined it. Kyle Busch will be throwing it back to Ernie Irvan with this iconic Skittles throwback. Everything about this beautiful paint scheme is great, and this is what a Skittles car should look like. Bright colors and an eye-catching design that fans of all ages can spot from the stands. In addition, the video announcement for this throwback was absolutely priceless. And sadly, I haven't gotten to replicating the tactics of eating a Skittles and watching things go back in time. There are tons of ideas I could use for that. But anyways, just because of this car, I might actually root for Kyle Busch to win for once. What an accomplishment.
Hey race fans, Kyle Busch here. Tune into NBC Sports Network on September 2nd at 6 p.m. to catch my Skittles Toyota Ernie Irvan throwback car at Darlington Raceway.
From Eric Jones and Joe Gibbs Racing this year, we get an awesome throwback to his spotter, Rick Corelli, and his days as a driver. While it's not the greatest Sport Clips throwback, the momentum of constantly creating new ideas and new ways to throw back to the past is well represented in this design. Sport Clips, in fact, technically introduced the idea of the Darlington Throwback in 2012 with this Cale Yarborough tribute. No doubt, Sport Clips is the most underrated throwback sponsor, and this will be a treat to watch on Sunday. For Paul Menard and the Wood Brothers, we get a David Pearson design that won the 1968 Southern 500. While this motorcraft scheme isn't as great as the 2017 throwback, you still have to respect the history and the lasting legacy behind this paint scheme. I cannot wait to see how NASCAR's oldest team can continue to progress through time. How about this design? Joey Logano will be throwing it back to Steve Park on his 22 Pennzoil Ford Fusion. The Pennzoil colors with the black stripes and the iconic yellow. It was such a staple at DEI, even though Steve Park was one of the biggest busts of all time. Don't get me started on how bad Steve Park was. He got cut from DEI mid-season in 2004. That's how bad he was. Still, a beautiful car nonetheless, and just be thankful that Teresa Earnhardt hasn't filed a lawsuit yet. Meanwhile, the creative geniuses at Exalta and Hendrick Motorsports are bringing back the Rainbow Warrior. Really? Besides seeing the colors on the Camaro, this car brings absolutely nothing new to the table. I mean, it's not like Jeff Gordon ran this car back at the Bristol Night Race in 2015. It's just another excuse to compare William Byron to Jeff Gordon and beat a dead horse of the Rainbow Warrior. Please, for the sake of all 24 fans, run the 2001 championship winning Flames next year. This is what I grew up watching, and I was absolutely mad when Jeff Gordon didn't run this car at some point during his final season in 2015. But all would be forgiven if William Byron ran this car in 2019 on the Camaro. It would be an absolute treat for sure. Now watch, next year they will probably choose another one-hit wonder like the Jurassic Park design instead. Oh, absolutely wonderful. Nobody asked for that car. And yet they'll push off the iconic Flames for another year. Guess what, guys? Can you believe this? Caterpillar finally came up with an original idea. Instead of copying off Austin Dillon for the third year in a row, Ryan Newman and the 31 team will be throwing it back to the late Neil Bonnet. It's such a simple, beautiful black paint job on display, and it looks great for possibly Ryan Newman's final Darlington throwback scheme. And ironically, Ryan Newman and Neil Bonnet have the same amount of wins in 18. It's such a sentimental paint scheme. Matt DiBurrito and Go Fast Racing will be throwing it back to the old Jeff Burton Exide batteries look. The beautiful light blue and pink design is back, and it will likely battle Ernie Irvan hard to stay on the lead lap. You know what I don't love about this throwback? This is the third year in a row this generic Love's Company throwback will hit the track. It's truly sad that there have been more driver changes for this team than the variation of the throwback scheme for the 34 car. What a throwback to the GOAT of Twitter, Landon Castle. Utter laziness once again by Front Row Motorsports and Loves. Come on. Chris Buescher will be throwing it back to the first Busch Beans can. And now this car is awfully generic, but I like the accuracy behind this paint scheme and replicating an old food product and putting it on the track for Darlington. Hopefully next year we see a much better design though. This is fairly generic. David Reagan will be running this retro Dale Jarrett throwback to his first win at the Michigan Speedway in 1991. While it's a slick design and has a great history, it's easily forgotten compared to the other designs in 2018. At one point, hopefully, we get a Long John Silver's or Taco Bell throwback from 2010. Please, Front Row Motorsports, make it happen. That would be absolutely awesome. I mean, at some point, you just gotta live Moss. For the first time ever, there will be a throwback design to a losing race, as Kurt Busch will be running this old Rubbermaid design that lost him the 2003 Southern 500 in one of the closest finishes in NASCAR history. I'll give them props for making the most out of having Haas CNC sponsorship, as we see a drill replace the infamous pen on the side door. Absolutely creative, and it's great to see this car come out of the highlight reels and back onto the Darlington racetrack, this time with redemption in mind. Davey Allison will be well represented at the Southern 500, as Kyle Larson will run an altered throwback to the iconic 28 Havoline design. While I give DC Solar points for the idea, they did not execute this car well at all. Why do you need to make the car have useless shades of blue, where the black and gold are meant to be, where the legacy lies? This car is certainly one of the worst throwbacks of 2018, and it's a shame seeing the history behind it absolutely tarnished. Another year, another Richard Petty STP throwback for the 43 team. Unlike the last few seasons, I give them credit for trying something new. The simplistic Petty Blue 43 harkens me back to the Thunderbird days, and Bubba Wallace should have a fun time this weekend throwing it back to one of the all-time greats. Speaking of fun times, AJ Allmendinger is sporting the old Kingsford paint job that Robert Presley drove in 1998. A great red, white, and blue design is back on track, and this is a great throwback for a smaller team like JTG Doherty Racing to come up with. So with Lowe's leaving after 2018, they come up with this absolutely genius idea by bringing back the 2012 Southern 500 win with the generic Cobalt racing stripes. You have got to be kidding me, Lowe's. Your final year doing a throwback, and you choose a design that ran back in 2014. Don't get me wrong, the history behind this car is great with Hendrick Motorsports after getting their 200th win in this design, but it would have worked as a 2022 throwback, as it would have been 10 years down the line. People would have remembered this car, and it would have been a great throwback for that time. But with this, with Lowe's leaving in 2019, this is absolutely terrible. Nobody wanted this car with the prestige history with Lowe's and Jimmie Johnson. You could have ran a throwback to his first Southern 500 victory, or the car that won 3 championships in a row from 2006 to 2008, or even the 7th championship car would have been a better throwback than this lousy paint scheme. We already had to put up with the Lowe's for Pros car, that ugly car, for 6 months. Now you get this lame throwback at Darlington. Thanks for making this all but forgettable in 2018, Lowe's. You should have just left after 2017. Absolutely pathetic. Talk about another awful throwback. Here we have Timmy Hills Car. Now, I like the Kmart design, the Darrell Waltrip throwback, but the sponsor absolutely ruined it. This car, absolutely ugly. Really, this is the worst things about corporates and sponsorships. They absolutely tarnish this paint scheme. Meanwhile, we have Corey Lajoie throwing it back to Randy Lajoie. And honestly, it's not a bad design. It looks simple. I would have liked to see his Dollar General design from the Busch series. Hopefully we get that next year. That would be one of the best throwbacks for that year. Hopefully they can get a top tier sponsor for that as well. Unlike Lowe's and Hendrick Motorsports, Levine Family Racing and Casey Kane will be sporting a touching throwback in Kane's final Southern 500. Dumont Jets will grace the hood of this red and white design that was piloted during Kane's Best Cup Series season in 2006. Everything about this car was executed well, such as the font design on the hood, and even the old Evernham 9 alongside the 5 on this car. This is what a career-defining throwback should look like, Lowe's. Jeffrey Earnhardt will carry on the Earnhardt legacy to the Southern 500 with this retro design. It certainly looks cool and sleek, but the Earnhardt fans will likely find anger towards this car because it's on a Toyota. Oh, them Toyotas. Earnhardt wouldn't have wanted a Japanese manufacturer. America, yeah. And no, I am not anti-America. So you guys, all you keyboard warriors, better start deleting your hateful comments because I am not anti-America. I am just showing the fact I do not get the hate behind Toyota. Everyone's like, oh, they're foreign, we should hate them, even though the Camry is built and manufactured in Kentucky. Yeah, totally foreigners. As for Derek Cope, oh no. So now it's time to reflect on my favorite and least favorite designs of the year. For the least favorites, third place is Chris Buescher and his lame Busch throwback. Second goes to Michael McDowell, and first, mainly because of the high expectations, this goes to Jimmie Johnson and his absolutely lame throwback. Lowe's, if you don't come up with something genius for Homestead, your reputation's going to go down because these are some of the worst Lowe's paint schemes I've seen out of this year, besides the patriotic design. Absolutely forgettable. Now it's time to go on to the positive. For the best design, some honorable mentions. I have to give it to Ty Dillon and his Geico 2009 throwback, and Austin Dillon and his Dale Sr. Silver Bullet. Oh yeah, one more. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and his John Deere paint scheme. Absolutely fantastic. Those were some of my best designs this year. And so now for the top three. Third place would have to go to Kurt Busch and his beautiful Rubbermaid throwback, this time with the Haas automation. Second place would go to Joey Logano with his beautiful Pennzoil design. And hands down, the best throwback of 2018 is Kyle Busch and his beautiful Skittles design. You want to know the worst part about this whole thing? On NASCAR's voting, Clint Boyer's car beat Kyle Busch. I mean, it's good, but this car is hands down the best. It's got the history, the legacy, and it also has a great paint scheme. This is going to be the car to see on track on Sunday. And hopefully, we will also see a great race on the track and some old school racing as well. So anyways, this is NASCAR Racing Fan 2015 signing out. And just remember, life's a beach and then you drive.